Hello, it's Pyram King, and I'm super excited to bring to you this guide on how to include fortune card reading in your game. And it doesn't matter if it's Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, or one of the wonderful fantasy role-playing games. You can use this mechanic to introduce new characters and quests, or just throw a monkey wrench into your game. It's great role-playing fun for both the game master and the players. We're going to be talking about the Tarokka deck. Now, along with this guide, I've included a 50-page guide that includes all the cards, the references, the descriptions, tables on how to do all of this. There's a link down below. It's available for free as my gift back to the role-playing game community. But wait, do not click on that link just yet, because in this video, I'm going to reveal the secrets of the Stone Cold Tarokka deck reading. That's right, for the first time ever, you will learn the secrets behind a Stone Cold Tarokka deck reading. Now, this video is divided into three parts. The first part of the video is the history of the Tarokka deck. The second part is going to be talking about the PDF guide and how I do that Stone Cold reading. And the last part will be talking about Foundry virtual tabletop system and how to incorporate this into the Foundry virtual tabletop game system. Now, first, I just want to do a special shout out and thanks to my Patreon members. It's your support that allows me to put this content together, and I do have some special thank you treats that I'll be revealing in this video just for you. And if you're interested in becoming a Patreon member and you like my content, you can support me for as little as $1. I'll put a link down below where you can click on it and check out my Patreon page. So let's just dive into it, shall we? So the first thing is the history of the Tarokka deck. And the history comes really from tarot card. Yes, Tarokka is a derivative of tarot cards. Now, tarot card or fortune card reading, we believe the earliest tarot card readings began in the mid-1750s, mid-18th century. There's an anonymous document that describes on how to interpret cards to read people's fortunes. And it became all the rage and was in vogue in Paris through the late 1700s through the early 1800s. And it kind of gave birth to what we know today as tarot card readings to read fortunes. And we've probably all experienced it, whether it's in your town where you have some fortune readers, or you've been at a carnival or fair, or like myself, I have had a great aunt who used to read tarot cards and Ouija boards, and well, at a very young age, I was exposed to tarot card reading. But what about Tarokka cards? Well, Tarokka cards are a Dungeons & Dragons innovation of tarot cards to incorporate into your game. The first fortune card reading was introduced in the gothic horror Ravenloft i6 module in the early 80s by Laura and Tracy Hickman, and it's become probably the most iconic campaign ever, and it's been reintroduced and rebooted several times through several editions. But what about that first Tarokka deck? Well, the first Tarokka deck came out in 1992 in the box set Forbidden Lore, and that deck is referred to as the red and black deck, and this was for second edition's Dungeons & Dragons. It wasn't until the third edition, which we saw another Tarokka deck come out. The third edition deck is known as the Ravenloft deck, and it's personally my favorite deck. I love the color of it. It's got this kind of faded yellow look. It looks like the artwork is woodblock prints. It has this feeling kind of a Lovecraftian kind of Edgar Allan Poe feeling to this deck. And one thing that the first and second edition did was really elaborate on the cards and different ways of incorporating the readings into your game. Now, the third edition deck, the Ravenloft deck, is one of the most highly collected items for people that collect Dungeons & Dragons stuff, and that deck has gone for $200 or $300 in mint conditions. In fact, I saw listing it for over $400 for a mint condition deck. It's been out of print. It was printed initially in 2003, but it's been out of print. Now, the latest version of Tarokka deck we have is just simply known as the Tarokka deck. It's currently available on online retailers and from Wizards of the Coast. It's a great looking deck. It's black and white. I really like the borders on the deck, as well as it's very legible. It's a very nice looking black and white deck. And you can pick that up, as I said, from several online retailers or your local gaming and hobby store. And I recommend buying it from your local gaming hobby store. You want to support our local businesses. Now, one of the things that I will say, as much as I love Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft, that I was disappointed in the Curse of Strahd guide was, while they introduced the mechanics of the Tarokka deck, they left out all the lore and how we can incorporate the Tarokka decks into our other games. They had another opportunity to do it again with the recent release of Van Richten's guide, but unfortunately, it's just there's no Tarokka in there, and there's so much great lore and how to incorporate it beyond the simple mechanics that we see in Curse of Strahd. Now, the way it's introduced in Curse of Strahd, it's a game mechanic that fits just into that campaign. I call this mechanic the Hasbro Clue mechanic. Now, if you're familiar with the Hasbro game Clue, there's a deck of cards, you shuffle them up, you stick them in an envelope, and as a player, we're trying to solve a murder mystery, and the cards reveal the murder weapon, the murderer, and the location. Well, in Curse of Strahd, it's a very similar mechanic, but it reveals everything at the front end. You get the Tarokka reading, you shuffle up the cards, the Tarokka reading reveals the magic weapon, the location of the big bad evil guy, some locations of probably some NPCs that are going to help you. It's a great mechanic, but it's really handcuffed to the Curse of Strahd campaign. And the second and third edition mechanics about how to incorporate it into any game have, well, they don't exist in the Curse of Strahd. So this guide that I've put together serves really two purposes. One is to maintain and keep that history and lore intact that we can use as a supplement to any game, but also to update those old mechanics and rules to incorporate into the 5th edition or any type of fantasy role-playing game that you're playing. It's a really fun, interesting mechanic that I think is just awesome. So let's go into this and talk a little bit about the history here. So both in the 2nd and 3rd edition, they included some really interesting history about the Vistani, how these cards were made, the power of the cards, and where they originated. So I included that information in here. It's a really fascinating read. It's only a couple of pages, both from the 2nd edition, and I included it from the 3rd edition from the Ravenloft Dungeon Master's Guide. And this really kind of gives you some understanding and comprehension of where these cards come from, how powerful they are, the first deck of cards, and I think it helps incorporate some context if you're going to incorporate this mechanic into your game, understanding the significance and the secrets of the Tarokka deck. Now, let's jump into part 2 of this video, and that's really about the guide, how to use these Tarokka decks. What are they? How can we use them in our game? And of course, the secrets to the Stone Cold Tarokka reading. Yep, it's coming up. So let's talk about the deck for a second. The deck is 54 cards, and it's divided between what's called the Lesser Deck of Fate, which are 4 suits. It's the swords, the stars, the glyphs, and the coins. So there's 4 suits of cards like a normal playing deck, and there's 10 cards in each suit, either 1 through 10 or ace through master. In addition, there's 14 cards that are called the Fortuna Magna, or also known as the Higher Deck. These are, according to the Vistani, or according to Lo, very special, important, powerful cards. So it's these 14 cards along with the 40 cards of the 4 suits that make up the entire Tarokka deck. Now, some interesting things from the 2nd and 3rd edition that's not at all mentioned in Curse of Strahd in the 5th edition or Van Richten's Guide is the significance of these cards. Now, the first thing they did in the 2nd edition is they assigned the numerical value of the cards to certain alignments. So if you wanted to do a reading and talk about, chaotic good or lawful evil, you can by referencing the numbers of the card. I thought this is a really cool flavor mechanic to use in any Tarokka reading. In addition, in the 2nd and 3rd edition, they mentioned that the symbols of the suits represent both elements, so coins are earth, there's air, fire, and water, as well as animals and classes. Now, in the original deck, there was obviously the basic character classes of warrior, priest, rogue, and mage. And what I did in this guide was I expanded it to and assigned the different classes for 5e, so you can still use the Tarokka reading now with 5e, and it's pretty easy to adopt it to whatever role-playing game that you are. Pretty much it's the melee class, the magic user class, the healers, and then the rogue and bard class, and just divide the symbols in there accordingly, and this table will help you do it. Now, one of the most important tables in a Tarokka reading is what's known as the focus card. There's going to be one card that you're going to pull out of your deck initially, find it in your deck and reveal it, put it face up on the table, and that's the card, the subject of who you're reading. It can be the person that you're reading, or they want a reading on a third person. And so I put this guide here that shows you if you're going to be doing a reading, for instance, for a paladin, you're going to find the Master of Swords or the Warrior card, pull it out of the deck, place it face up, and that's who the reading is going to be about. So if you're going to be doing a reading for Paladin, you're going to be doing it with the Master of Swords card. In addition, as I mentioned, you can do readings on third parties, such as maybe the big bad evil guy or the enemy. You're going to be using the Dark Master or the Dark Lord card. If it's a monster or beast, you could use the Beast card. A minion or NPC, the Marionette card. And last but not least, if there's a victim or a prisoner or somebody you're trying to rescue, you can use the Innocent card as your focus card. And so this table will help you with that. Now, let's talk about, this is really interesting. I found a little section in the 3rd edition, I believe it was in the Dungeons Master Guide, that if you have a player character that has a quarter or half-blood Vistani, they can actually create their own Tarokka deck. And so I put the mechanics in here. This is really fun if you have a player character that has, comes from a Vistani clan or have Vistani blood in them, how they can create their own Tarokka deck, which I thought was really cool. And it gives them some bonus, like a +6 bonus on any intelligence checks to notice whether or not they're being scryed on. So I just put that in there. I thought it was really cool. So let's talk about actually going through the concept of a reading. And I'll go through the different mechanics of reading, the setup, some tips and tricks, and then, of course, the stone cold reading secrets that you've been all waiting desperately for. So in the 2nd and the 3rd edition, they had 4 methods that they described on how to do readings. And this is not, again, we're not talking about the Curse of Strahd mechanic. We'll mention that. We're talking about incorporating card readings into your game as a flavor mechanic, but also to introduce side quests and NPCs, and just, it's a really fun element. So they had the 4 different methods that they described, but they were kind of, they were kind of convoluted. So I kind of merged them together and edited it to make it more, put a little bit of method to the madness and provide some clarity. The first one is just using the entire deck, letting the player shuffle them up, and just doing a reading from this deck. It's either called Dealing's Fortune, or if you're using the old 2nd edition, they called it Luck of the Draw. Now, the problem with this reading is, you could come up with a card that's going to throw a monkey wrench into the campaign, or a wild card. Also, you better be fairly good at improvising and ad-libbing, because you're just going to be randomly using cards. The fun thing about it is, and the good thing about it is, you can take a deck and just give it to the player, shuffle it up, and just do a reading. There's no prep at all for this. It is, if you can do this well, this is, you're going to be, you're well on your way. This is probably, other than my stone cold reading method, this is probably the best method, but you need to be good at improvising. The second method they call is changing the odds in 3rd edition, or they call it special cards in the 2nd edition. And technically, it's two mechanics. The first thing is you're going to remove cards from the deck that you don't want in the deck, that you feel that are going to screw up your reading. Maybe you don't want those things in there because they'll introduce things that you don't want in your campaign. So there's this prep that you have to go through. The second part of it, which is part of the 2nd edition special cards, is you're going to go through the pattern of your layout, and you're going to go through every single card, turning them over. And the cards that aren't important, you're just going to, add some basic flavor to it. Oh, well, this supports the main card, until you reveal one of the important cards, and then you're going to elaborate on the important card. I find this sloppy for 2 reasons. Number one is you got to take your deck aside, pull out a bunch of stuff before you do this. Even though that they can shuffle it afterwards, you're just going to be going through all the cards and waiting for the important cards to come up to make your important reveals. It's just, I think it's a sloppy method. I don't recommend it, but I did include it in here if you're interested in it. The third method is called multiple choice in 3rd edition, or random determination, and this is the method they use in 5e. Now this requires a lot of prep, because what you're going to do is you're going to create a table and information, and you're going to be assigning information to each single card, and this is how the Curse of Strahd mechanic works. So if you want to reveal a particular weapon hidden in a particular location, or a particular NPC in a particular location, or the location of the big bad guy, for instance, you're going to have to assign each card with one of these things, and so that when you randomly turn them over, you're going to know that the 2 of stars represents a magic weapon that's located in wherever. So it requires a lot of prep. I think they've done a really good job with it in Curse of Strahd. If you do have Curse of Strahd, you can read through how they did that and kind of emulate that for your own campaign. And last but not least, in their recommendations, is stacking the deck. And this has some pros and cons. The first pro is, if you want to if you have more of a railroad campaign, or you're trying to steer your party or player somewhere, you can stack the deck and kind of force the reading on them, if you will. The downside with it is you can't let your players shuffle the deck. If it gets mixed up, your reading's not going to go well. Now, you can do stack readings a lot easier online, but I just still don't really like stack readings. I mean, there is reasons that you want to do it, but I prefer my stone cold reading. So let's go ahead and talk about Pyram King's Stone Cold reading and the secrets. First of all, there are no secrets. It's some tips, some tricks, and some mechanics. And with every magic trick, it's not really necessarily a secret. It's really about presentation. Anybody can learn the mechanics of the trick, but it's the presentation that really makes it special. So there's 3 things that you need to do. The first thing is important observation of the realizations that you have at hand. So remember, you know the player character's backstory. You've helped prepped it in session 0. Everything about that player character's backstory, you already know. So when you're going to be reading about their past, it's going to be really easy. It's a goldmine of information. Imagine a fortune teller knowing everything about your past. Well, it's going to be easy for them to do a fortune reading. Well, technically, you have that ability because you know the player character's backstory. Number 2, observation. You are the game master. You know your campaign. You know your world. You know the big bad guy. You know the story arcs, the quests, the encounters, everything. So you're going to be able to draw on this stuff that you have into your reading really easily. So you know the player's background story, and you know the world. You are the game master. I mean, this is a goldmine of information at your fingertips. Third, the positions on the card, when we go through the setup section, each position has an important relevance. There's the past, the present, the future, and the journey. And so before you even reveal a card, you already know the subject matter of that card. You're going to reveal something about their past. So before I even turn over a card, I don't even need to know what the card is. I know I'm going to be talking about their player character background, their past, and the card, when I flip it over, is just going to be kind of flavored text to their past. The same thing with the present. When you're going to turn over the present, well, you've been running the campaign. You know what immediately just happened or what will happen, the town they're in, the NPCs that they're going to run into. It's very easy to put that into because you have that information. In the future, well, you're running the campaign. So each of those positions is going to set you up already in your head about what you're going to say. Now, your player's not going to know that, so it's going to be pretty impressive when you pull this off. Now, the second thing that you need to do is prepping your reading. And I don't really mean prepping for your reading. You're already doing this by doing your session prep, prepping for your campaign. When you're prepping for your session, your campaign, you're knowing locations, NPCs, loots, possible encounters, possible quests, side quests. Think about when you're prepping during your session prep, these are the items that you're going to be talking about in your Tarokka reading. If you need to put a little outline and just put all your NPCs and loot and quest items, you can do that. But really, your session prep is going to be everything you need to know for your card reading. Third, this is the mechanic secret or mechanic effect in the Stone Cold reading. You're going to load the deck, and you're going to do this right in front of the players. Remember, for every card reading, you have to go through the deck, and you're going to have to pull out the focus card. So if it's a paladin, you're going to have to pull out the Master of Swords or the Warrior card to place it face down. Now, as you're pulling that out, you're going to remove the other suits that aren't the sword suits. You're going to remove the coins, that's 10 cards. You're going to remove the stars, that's 10 cards. And you're going to remove the glyphs, 10 cards. And you're only going to be left with the swords, which match the Master of Swords, and the Fortuna Magna cards, the important Vistani powerful cards. And then you're going to give this to the player to shuffle. Now, they're going to go, why aren't we using those cards? And you're going to go, well, you're a paladin. You're the Master of Swords. We're going to be reading you the fortune of a great warrior. Those cards are for magic users and for rogues and for healers. Unless you're a magic user or rogue, these cards are powerful cards for their readings. You can, very simple explanation, you're reading a fortune for a warrior, not for a magic user. So you can tell them that there's different decks for different types of people that you read your cards for. By doing this, you've just stripped out half of the deck, making it a lot easier to read. You know that every sword that's going to come up is going to be a flavor mechanic dealing with melee combat. It's going to be about soldiers and paladins and fighting and combat. It's not going to be having any magic in it. It's not going to have any priest or healing spells in it. It's not going to have any things about merchants and traders or thieves or rogues. It's going to be specifically about fighters. So by loading the deck right there in front of the players, you can give this deck, this now new deck that you've created, right in front of the player. He can shuffle it or she can shuffle it. And you're going to tell them, shuffle the deck. We need your aura in the deck. You've got your flavored. So these three things that you're going to do allows you to do what's known as forced persuasion. So if you're doing a card trick, a magic card trick, there's a mechanic known as a force. That means you think you're going to randomly pick a card, but I'm going to force you to pick a card. I want you to pick the Ace of Spades, and I'm going to use a card mechanic, a sleight of hand technique that forces no matter what you do, you're always going to pick the Ace of Spades, for instance, because I want you to do that. It's known as a force in magic. Now, when you use a force in magic, you know ahead of time what the player's card's going to be before they even pick it. That means everything you do after that, you can give them the deck to shuffle it, you can throw the deck in the air. That's all theatrics. That's all the presentation, because you already know the answer that they think is a complete random secret. Well, that's what we're doing in a Cold Stone reading, is we're doing what's called force persuasion. We already know what we are going to talk about by each of these cards. We're going to talk about your past, something from your backstory. We're going to talk about the present, something that's just happened recently or will happen in the campaign, in the session. We're going to talk about the future, which is going to be the main story arc. And we're going to talk about a journey, an obstacle. I already know what I'm going to talk about by all four of these things. And the cards are just going to be a flavor element that I'm going to read into this. So it's called a force persuasion technique. And if you pull this off, it's very, very powerful and allows you to introduce elements into the campaign. So I have an example here I put in here. You have a player that you're going to be doing a reading for. They're a fighter, for instance. So you're going to be pulling out the Master of Swords or the Warrior cards or Focus card. And you're going to be revealing something from the past. You've shuffled up the deck. When you turn over the card for the past, you already know. You're going to say, this card's going to reveal something interesting about the past. Let's say you turn over the Temptress or the Tempter card. And you can say, and I put some text here, you ventured off on a great quest in your youth, yet you were tempted by the love of another, perhaps a lover. You demonstrated great restraint as you pursued your destiny and did not allow the temptation to blind you. However, this card does warn that your past may come back to haunt you, and you may be tempted again. What you've done is you already know that they've left somebody behind that was part of their backstory to go off on this quest. And you're just mentioning you're using the card as a flavor mechanic. There was some temptation, and you might be tempted again. This also allows you to introduce something in the next session. Now, you might think, well, that's going to be pretty difficult. I'm not really good at improvising or ad-libbing. Well, I'm giving you a free out. I'm giving you a get out of jail free card. And that's prepping what I call the mystery flavored text. If you turn over a card and you freeze, you already know what you're going to say before you turn over the card. You're just going to go, a mystery of your past will reveal itself. So imagine, right? This card will reveal something interesting about your past. You turn it over, it's the Temptress card. You freeze. You just don't know what to say. The first thing that's going to come out of your mouth, because you don't want to break this really great narrative. You go, a mystery from your past will reveal itself. You can just say that. Doesn't matter what the card is. And then it gives you a little moment where you can go, you will be tempted, perhaps haunted by something in your past. And you just keep it short and sweet. You're just using the word on the card, temptress or tempter, to add in that little ad lib at the end. The important thing is you've already prepped in your head a mystery of your past will reveal it yourself. Now, what's really nice about this kind of get out of the free jail moment is you can now prep in for the next session or the future session something that you're going to introduce from their past, right? And introduce a mystery that's going to reveal itself, therefore making this fortune come true. You have the power of making the fortune come true as the game master, which is the beauty of introducing this concept into your game. So just think about it. You have the foreknowledge of the player's backstory. You control the world, know everything about the world. You know the positioning of the cards. You're in an extremely advantageous position to create a really wonderful, fun experience for this reading in there. And a little practice your stone cold readings, you're going to be a rock star, trust me. So let's talk about the setup really quick. There are several different patterns. I've included the other patterns from the second and third edition, which is the Virgin Cross, the pyramid, as well as the extended cross. They're in the appendix. You can read about them. They're extended, more complex readings. We're just going to keep with the basic reading, which is the reading that came out in the beginning, and it's still the same layout pattern that they use in 5e. So in the center is the focus card. You're always going to place this face up. Remember, I have the table to tell you which focus card to use depending on who you're doing the reading for. The second position is always going to be the past. You're going to place that face down. The third is the present. The fourth is the future, which is a really important card, future events. And then the fifth, I call it the journey card. Some people call it the outcome or the obstacle card. I prefer to call it the journey card. So, by the way, this is a nice table map that DM Andy put together. I put a link to his Patreon page. Whether you're playing online or you're playing on the tabletop, using this picture, you can put your tokens on it or your miniatures on it as you're going through your card, and kind of gives you a fun element. So I included that in there. Thanks, DM Andy, for giving me a copy of that. So let's talk about the reading and then going through a reading, actually, and how to do this. The first thing I want to point out before you do a reading, take the time to look at the cards, because there's so many elements in these cards that you can draw upon for your reading. You don't have to use the whole card. You can use elements in the card. So the first thing, you have a picture. The picture is something, it doesn't even have to be related to what the card is, but you could just use something in the picture, element in the picture, for your card reading. The second thing is the cards have some names on there, like the swashbuckler, or the illusionist. You can use that and incorporate that into your reading. The third is the number. Remember, there's the table with the alignment. So, the one is, lawful good, for instance. You can use this element of alignment to add a flavor of good or evil, forces of good or evil fighting against each other. In addition, you have the suit. The suit, again, has the elements, the earth, wind, fire, and water, or it has animals related to it, or it actually has classes related to it. So you can use the suit. So if you take the time, you're soon going to realize that each card has all these little elements to draw upon, allowing you to perform some really amazing card reading. So let's go through the card reading. And I want to say the most important thing in this video, the most important thing in the guide that you're going to learn is the cards are a prop. The real magic is you. Now, the difference between doing a card trick and a magician, me doing a card trick and a magician doing a card trick, is presentation. It's theater. That is what draws you into it. You lose the objective reality of a trick and mechanic, and you're brought into the subjective reality of this presentation. That is what makes this card reading special. Not which deck of cards you use, whether it's a Tarokka deck or the Ravenloft deck. It is the presentation. So I've included some flavored text in here. You can come up with your own. I suggest that you do. So the first card that you're going to put on the table is going to be the focus card. And you're going to say something, and I put some flavored text. I'll just read it here. Think deeply on the Master of Swords. Allow it to channel the destiny and the fate of love and hate, of sadness and sorrow, of life and death. The reading is going to be only as strong as your concentration on the Master of Swords. You've brought this player into this moment. You've slipped in to their subconscious a focus element. What is going to happen? It's a soft persuasion that you're doing here. It's part of this theater, this theatrics that their presentation that you're putting together. Now, you already know second position is going to be the past. So you're going to just color it. You already know what you're going to say. You know their backstory. You know what you're going to talk about. So before you reveal the card, you're going to say, this card will reveal the past. Perhaps what is already known, or something that remains a mystery. And then you turn over the card and you elaborate on the card and fill it in. And again, if you don't know, you go, oh, and then you do the whole mystery bit that I just told you about. The third position is about what's happening now. It could happen. It could have just happened recently. It could have been a combat encounter or an NPC or something in the location or something that's about to happen. The present is an abstract period of time, right? It's whatever you want it to be, but I keep it within the game session presence. And you're going to say, this card will reveal your current surroundings. It is the present, the now, the here, the there, but it is imminent in nature if it has not already come to be. And then you reveal the card and you go through your little flavorful banter and colorful narration. The fourth position is you want to lay some serious gravitas on this. This should be the major story quest. This should be the major big bad evil guy. If you're in Curse of Strahd, it's going to be Lord Strahd, right? It's going to be the main bad guy, right? The main quest. And it should be serious. It'd be about that. This is the future of the campaign. This card will reveal your destiny, the future, perhaps even your fate. It may not be what you wish, but with this knowledge, there is the possibility, no matter how slight, of changing the course. Yet this is rare. For the future has been written, and it takes the most powerful feats of will to change the course of time. And you reveal this, and it could be something about Strahd, or one of his minions, or something about Ravenloft, or some major part of the story. It's the future. It's how your campaign, what they're going to face at the zenith, the conclusion of your campaign. The fifth position, the last position, is my favorite. It is called the journey. Some people call it the outcome. And you're going to reveal something mysterious, an unknown item, an NPC, a location they have to go for. This could throw the monkey wrench into your campaign, and it's fun. It could be some location that they don't even know about that you're going to send them off on, or some item they need in order to have that, to meet that future outcome, right? In order to defeat the bad guy, they're going to need the magic sword, or they need to go on this quest and find this person to aid them on this quest. That's what the fifth position is. So you're going to say, this may be the most important card, for it may tell of a person, a place, or an artifact which you will need to reach your destination, to complete your quest, to save a friend, to find a lover, or to find peace. And then you reveal that card, and you go through your narration and your colorful narrative of how that card colors that effect. And so that's the card reading. Now, I've also included it in the guide, the quick reference tables. What was really nice is when the 3rd edition deck came out, the Ravenloft deck, they had really little succinct meanings with reverse meanings for every single card. So I created a table for all of those. For the Fortuna Magnas, you can just go through here, the suits of coins, you know what the meaning is. So if you need just a quick reference, you don't want to go through the details of each card, those are all in here. And the bulk of this guide is the picture and the really deep details from the 3rd editions, with some references from the 2nd editions, along with descriptions, what the reverse card means. Every single card is in here. It's 20 some odd pages long, including references to any changes from the new card. So this has everything in it that you're going to need about every single card, and I've included all the Ravenloft cards, which were my favorite, and I thought it'd be a treat because it's the most highly collected of all the cards, even though you can use the modern deck. In the end of the guide, I have, let's get to the end of the guide. This is quite long, as you can see. I have deck differences, so you can see when the names were changed. So there were some changes from 2E to the Ravenloft deck to the Tarokka deck, so you can see the changes in the cards. So if you have the 3rd edition or the Tarokka deck 5th edition, and you want to know which cards go with which, there's the differences in the cards. I also included the other Tarokka patterns. If you want to do one of the more complicated readings, I have all the instructions to do the divergence or the tower reading, as well as the extended cross, and as well as the pyramid. This all comes from the 2nd, and most of this comes from the 2nd, and some of it from the 3rd edition. Obviously, where you can purchase all this stuff, I'd like to say I'm really grateful to the Drive-Thru RPG, which has made some of the 2nd and 3rd edition stuff available now in PDF. So Ravenloft Forbidden Lore 2E and Ravenloft Campaign Setting 2E is available. So if you want all that content, additional content, not just what I've brought in, the edited stuff, it's all available there for purchase, as well as Curse of Strahd and the Modern Tarokka deck. I put links in there as well. And at the end, I've put the bibliography, all the references to the books, as well as some end notes in here that's relevant. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to jump over to the Foundry here and walk through Foundry and how to use this on Foundry. Now, this is again the tabletop. I have it all lit. Put some nice lighting in here for Foundry users. And guess what I have in here? Yes, I have every single card from the Tarokka deck as an item in here. I also have the journal entries, everything that you just saw in the PDF guides and journal entries, and roll tables, including the Stone Cold roll tables, which are the loaded decks with just the suits that you need for each of the people. Now, I'm going to show you how I recommend doing this on the table with the roll table. You do need one module. You need pick up sticks module, which is in there. But all of this is a Foundry Adventure pack that's available to my Foundry Adventure Patreon members as a big thank you gift for your support. So you can download this and just import it, and you have everything you need. All the lighting, the beautiful thing by map by DM Andy. But let me show you how we're going to do this here. So you're going to do a reading, let's say, of one of the Master of Stars, for instance. So it's a mage. It's going to be a warlock. Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to grab the Master of Stars card, and you're going to put it face up on the table. There it is, right there, face up on the table. And that's going to be the focus card, because you're going to be doing a reading for a warlock, for instance. You're going to go over to this to prep your deck. Now, you can do this on the fly. If you feel comfortable rolling and telling them the cards on the fly, do this, or you can do it this way. So we're going to be doing the Stars roll table, and this includes just the Star deck as well as the Fortuna Magna, and you're just going to roll. And it's going to tell you, it's going to come up here. Whoops, let me just delete this because I have a bunch of stuff in here. Let's do it again. So we're going to roll, and it's going to randomly select a card, and it has the 9 of Stars. And you can just click on it. It tells you everything you need to know about the 9 of Stars. I'm just going to put that over here. And what you can do to set up your table is go over to your items directory and find the 9 of Stars, right? 9 of Stars. They're all in order. And you can just put the 9 of Stars right there on the table. Whoop. 9 of Stars right here on the table as an item. And you're going to make it invisible. When it comes up, you're going to make it invisible. This is the past. Remember, second position is the past. We're going to do the present. We're going to roll for the present. And the present says we've got the hero. So we're going to go to find the hero. There it is, the hero. We're going to put that up at the top. We're going to make that one invisible. And we're going to do the future. So let's roll for the future. And you can, if you want to do a stacked deck, you can. I just like to have them all random. The future is going to be the spirit. So we're going to grab the spirit and we're going to drag that over here. So that's in the 4th position. And the 5th position is the journey or the unknown. So we're going to find out what this one is. And we are going to grab, oh, it's the marionette. So we're going to grab, it looks like it's a marionette. Is it? Yep. So we're going to grab the marionette and we're just going to drag it over here, put it right in here, and make it invisible. Now you're done with your roll table, and now you can bring your player in here. You've got this. They can't see what's invisible, right? So you have the cards here, and you're going to do the past. And you can bring this up and see this, open this up for yourself. They can't see it yet. And you have everything here you need to know about the card. You have the description of the card. You have the meaning of the card. You have the reverse of the card. Everything that you found in the PDF guide is right here for you, including the picture, close-up picture. You can look at it. And when you turn it over, you can do your, this card's going to reveal something from your past, whether it's known or a mystery, and then you reveal it. Boom. And there it is. And you can ad lib. It could be a picture of a woman, in there, and you can say, you've left your lost love, back at home, or, whatever you want to do. It could be about the stars. It could be about the conjurer. You have all this stuff to elaborate on. You're going to do the same thing up here with the hero. You're going to reveal it. You can just click on the hero card. You have everything you need to know about the hero right here, including the picture. This, by the way, if you notice up here, where next to where here it says the Seer. So in the modern Tarokka deck 5e, it's also known as the Seer card. And so you just reveal all these cards. Now, what I recommend doing after you've revealed these cards to your player, and they can, zoom in and look at these cards as you're doing this reading, is you can click on these cards, right-click on them, and configure permission. And you can go to your player and say, I want to make them observer. That means it'll pop up in their items directory, just that card, and they can always click on it and read about it, see everything that's on the card like you did in the future. So they always have this card to go back to and review about it. Maybe they want to keep it on them as they're going through their campaign and their adventure, learning about this card. Well, that's it. There's the deck. This is available again for the Foundry Patreon members. The guide, the PDF 50-page guide, is available for free. There's a link down below. Again, thank you, DM Andy. Thank you for all the Patreon members. And this is Pyram King saying thank you. If you did like this video, please click like and hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. And may all your fortunes, be good fortunes, and may they come true. Thanks very much. This is Pyram King. Until next time.